Let's begin with a paradox. You do everything right. You follow the blueprint, build the body, scale the income, develop charisma. You become the image of male success. Yet somehow, when you sit across from a woman, there's no electricity. She's pleasant, polite, maybe even flirtatious, but not moved. You sense it in the silence between her smiles. Something's missing. Something you can't name. And then there's that one friend. No money, no flash, no credentials. He walks into a room like he doesn't care who notices. But women notice. Not just once, not by chance. Again and again. They follow him, message him, orbit him like he carries a magnetic field. It isn't luck, it isn't deception, it's something deeper. What if the entire framework you've been taught about attraction was inverted? What if female desire isn't ignited by what you show, but by what you don't reveal? Not by your polished exterior, but by the weight of your inner presence. Let's dive into that invisible realm. You see, most men are conditioned to think like merchants, offering goods on display, hoping the buyer chooses them. Here's my ambition. Here's my physique. Here's my lifestyle. They believe that a woman will be drawn in by logical evaluation. If the man has value, she will desire him. But this is not how the feminine psyche operates. Female attraction is not a checklist. It's current, and that current flows through perception, not inventory. In the language of psychology, we might call this phenomenon perceived sexual asymmetry, a moment when a woman senses that she is emotionally, energetically, or socially outmatched, not humiliated, not inferior, but intrigued. Because when a man's internal reality projects a kind of calm self-possession, when he carries himself as if he does not seek approval, as if he has nothing to prove, he unsettles her expectations. And in that moment, the chase begins. So why does this discrepancy in energy provoke addiction? Because women are biologically and psychologically tuned to emotional status, not social status. A man's inner world, his stability, his presence, his indifference to external validation, signal to the feminine mind that he is a psychological fortress. He cannot be manipulated, and therefore, he is rare. You've seen this before. One man walks into a room dressed like he owns it, but secretly glances around for validation. Another enters with no fanfare, speaks slowly, pauses without fear of silence, and every word lands like thunder. The difference? One is performing, the other is simply existing. Women feel this difference instantly, not intellectually, but viscerally. Their subconscious does the sorting for them. The feminine psyche doesn't respond to a man who tries to be impressive. It responds to a man who simply is. This is the essence of what Jung called the projection of the anima. When a woman projects her inner yearning onto a man, she doesn't seek his possessions. She seeks the symbol he becomes. And if he embodies strength, detachment, and a mysterious calm, she interprets him as an archetype, someone she wants to decode. Here's the dangerous truth. The more effort you put into being chosen, the more you announce that you are not worthy of it. The very act of seeking validation is the confession of its absence. And women, consciously or not, are hypersensitive to this. It's evolutionary. A man who needs external approval is fragile. He can be broken. And fragility is not addictive, it's exhausting. This brings us to one of the most misunderstood concepts in attraction: pre-selection. Men think it means flaunting other women to provoke jealousy. But true pre-selection is energetic, not performative. A man who is genuinely desired by women carries himself with the subtle ease of someone who knows his worth, without needing to flaunt it. He doesn't chase. He doesn't posture. He doesn't brag. And precisely because of this, women wonder what it is about him that others see. Curiosity is the seed of obsession, and pre-selection, when authentic, makes a woman ask silent questions. Why him? Why not others? What is it that I'm missing? This internal dissonance builds emotional tension, which becomes desire. But this can never be faked, because the feminine mind is attuned not to your words, but to your congruence. If you pretend to have options but vibrate with insecurity, she will sense it instantly. What most men miss is that women fall in love with a feeling, not a resume. The heart doesn't respond to data, it responds to energy. And energy is the residue of your internal state. You could have the body of a god, a penthouse in the city, a jawline cut from stone, but if your presence feels hollow, if you vibrate with need, she will lose interest. Not because you lack beauty, but because you lack essence. The man who captivates women is not the one who accumulates value, but the one who radiates it. This is the core of internal validation. Most men try to achieve their way into confidence. But true confidence isn't built, it's revealed. It's what remains when you strip away the need to impress, to chase, to win approval. It is self-trust in its purest form. When your confidence is rooted in achievements, it is always at risk. Lose the car, lose the girl. Gain weight, lose the edge. Get fired, lose the identity. But when confidence comes from a deep alignment with your self-worth, when it's no longer conditional, it becomes immovable. And immovability is magnetic. In today's world, this kind of energy is so rare that it becomes intoxicating. Women encounter men every day who are clever, handsome, wealthy, but desperate. Desperate to be noticed, to be desired, to be validated. But the man who is still, who does not flinch when ignored, who does not beg for recognition, he stands out like a lighthouse in fog. This is where female obsession begins, not with admiration, but with confusion. She senses something in him that defies her usual instincts. He does not follow the pattern. He does not react. He does not seek. And so she begins to seek him. This psychological asymmetry, the gap between what she expects and what she feels, is the true engine of female addiction. And if you understand this, you can stop performing. You can stop chasing illusions. You can begin the deeper work, constructing a self that is not dependent on her reaction, her validation, or her approval. Because the truth is this: the men who captivate women are not chasing women. They are chasing themselves. They are becoming sovereign in their energy. And sovereignty cannot be sold. It cannot be faked. But when it is real, it is irresistible. The difference between external value and internal worth is like the difference between gold-plated metal and solid gold. They might look the same under the wrong light. But over time, under pressure, in intimacy, during emotional storms, one fades, the other endures. Most men, unknowingly, chase the gold plating. They build wealth, physique, charm, all in the hope that these things will cover the hollow center they've never addressed. But the hollow eventually speaks, and when it does, it repels. Not because success is unattractive, but because emptiness behind success is painfully obvious to those attuned to emotional truth. This is the tragedy of modern masculinity. We are taught to conquer the world, but not ourselves. We are taught to accumulate, but not to anchor. And so we build identities stacked on achievements, only to find that none of it makes us more desirable to the feminine. Here's the uncomfortable paradox. The man with the least to prove often becomes the one everyone tries to prove themselves to. Why? Because he is rooted. Because he is not shaken by the winds of approval or rejection. Because he exists in what the Stoics called ataraxia, inner tranquility. Women sense this even before they understand it. He doesn't try to be impressive. He doesn't laugh louder to command attention. He doesn't adjust himself to fit her perception. He simply exists. And because he exists without striving, she feels the rarest emotional gift: safety. This is not safety in the physical sense, though that too matters. It is emotional safety. The sense that this man is not performative, that he won't collapse when tested, that he won't need her to mother his ego. This stability allows her to relax. And in that relaxation, her feminine essence emerges, flowing, feeling, open. But what does that mean practically? It means a man must stop outsourcing his confidence to outcomes. If your self-worth spikes when she texts you and crashes when she withdraws, you are not in control of your reality. You are a slave to her perception. And the psyche of the feminine does not fall in love with slaves. Non-reactivity, then, is the silent cornerstone of male magnetism. When she tests you, and she will, she's not trying to destroy you. She's unconsciously asking, are you grounded? Are you real? Are you worthy of my vulnerability? And when your response is calm, unfazed, even slightly amused, You pass that test without saying a word. Most men fail here because they confuse emotional availability with emotional instability. They think showing every feeling is a form of depth. But raw expression without mastery is chaos. Women don't crave chaos. They crave containment, not controlled. Containment, the space where her wildness is met by your steadiness. And this brings us to a crucial concept. Feminine addiction is not born from visual stimulation, as it often is with men. It is born from emotional entanglement. Women become obsessed with how a man makes them feel. Not in one moment, but across moments. The rhythm of presence, absence, unpredictability, and emotional anchoring. These are the invisible cords that bind her to him. Take note. Unpredictability here does not mean manipulation. It means autonomy. The man who isn't always available isn't playing games. He's just living his life. He's not constantly checking his phone, waiting for her message, rewriting texts 10 times to find the perfect response. He is simply immersed in his mission. And that immersion creates tension. And tension, especially emotional tension, is the fertilizer of female longing. Jung once said, "Tension is the precondition for consciousness. In attraction, it's also the precondition for desire. Too much certainty, too early, kills mystery. And without mystery, obsession cannot grow." This is where many men go wrong. They try to secure a woman too quickly, to impress, to persuade, to win her over. But in doing so, they rob her of the very process that would lead her to fall. Because falling is not rational. It is not earned through logic. It's a psychological spiral, born from fascination. And fascination cannot be forced. It must be invited. The most addictive men are not the loudest, not the flashiest, not even the most charming. They are the ones who embody contradiction. A calm presence with an untamed edge. A kindness that doesn't seek to be liked. A man who listens deeply, but with the silence of someone who doesn't need your story to complete his own. This is what I call energetic contrast, the sacred tension between groundedness and intensity. When a man carries both, he creates a field that women cannot easily categorize. And what can't be categorized becomes unforgettable. Most men attempt to win attraction through comfort. But addiction isn't born from comfort. It's born from polarity. Masculine stillness versus feminine movement. Logic versus emotion. Mystery versus safety. When this dance is present, the attraction becomes primal. Not chosen, but felt. Let's speak now of another overlooked quality. The ability to be fully present. Most men are everywhere except here. When speaking to a woman, they are mentally forecasting the next move, rehearsing lines, and analyzing results. But presence is rare, and rare is priceless. Presence is what makes her feel like the world disappears when she's with you. It is what allows her to relax her guard, to soften her edges, to expose the part of herself that she protects from lesser men. When you are fully here, without an agenda, without performance, without the need to impress, you give her something no amount of money can buy, the experience of being truly seen. But you cannot offer presence if you haven't found peace. Inner chaos cannot produce outer stillness. That's why the real work of attraction starts in solitude, in silence, in confronting your voids so that you don't demand she fill them. Most men seek to fill the silence of their inner world with female attention. They treat her presence as a remedy for their absence. But women do not fall in love with incomplete men. They fall in love with men who have made peace with their incompleteness. Those who are not desperate to be saved, completed, or praised. So here is the psychological law most men never learn. The less you need her to make you feel like a man, the more of a man she experiences you to be. This is not cruelty. This is independence. And independence, unlike dependence, breeds reverence. Addiction begins where certainty ends. And in a world where most men offer certainty too soon, the man who offers presence instead of promises becomes unforgettable. Now we arrive at the soul of the matter. To become the kind of man women get addicted to is not to learn tactics, it is to unlearn need. It is to develop a relationship with yourself so profound, so steady, that her presence becomes a delight, not a necessity. This is the man she will think about when she lies awake. The man she can't control, can't possess, can't explain. The man who didn't try to prove his worth, but whose worth was self-evident. Not because of his car, or body, or charm, but because of his stillness, his silence, his certainty. Let's begin where most stories end, with the man who no longer needs the game. He's not trying to attract women. He's not chasing validation. He's not asking, what works? Because he's not operating from lack. He's operating from fullness. And that fullness is what draws people toward him, without effort, without tactics. There's a profound irony here. The more you chase desire, the more it eludes you. The more you attach to outcomes, the more you repel them. And the more you treat women as a means to feel whole, the more they retreat. Because no one, not even the most loving partner, wants to carry the weight of your self-worth. At the core of true male magnetism is emotional sovereignty. The man who doesn't need your affection, your approval, or even your presence to feel valuable is rare. And in a world built on emotional dependence, the rare becomes addictive. You see, women are not seeking perfection. They are seeking presence. They are not looking for men who never falter, but for men who can hold steady through their storms. Because here's the truth no one tells you. When a woman is drawn to a man, she is not always drawn to his light. Sometimes, she is drawn to how he carries his darkness. The grounded man doesn't hide his insecurities. He integrates them. He doesn't demonstrate emotional strength. He embodies it. And in doing so, he offers her the most irresistible experience of all, the sense that she has entered the orbit of someone whose center cannot be shaken. So much of modern dating advice tells men to become more desirable by acquiring more muscles, more charisma, more money, more technique. But this only deepens the dependency. It builds a fortress around a fragile ego. And anything built on insecurity eventually collapses. Real growth begins when you stop asking, how can I attract her? And start asking, why do I need her to complete me? That question is uncomfortable, but it's the one that changes lives. It's in the silence after that question, when you realize you've been seeking women to soothe your inner wounds, that something begins to shift. You stop outsourcing your healing. You begin the slow, painful, beautiful process of becoming whole within yourself. And this inner wholeness transforms how women experience you. You become a mirror, not a magnet. You reflect to her not who you pretend to be, but who you are. And because you're no longer trying to manipulate her perception, she begins to trust it. Here lies the foundation of what Carl Jung called individuation, the process of integrating your shadow, reclaiming your lost self, and becoming psychologically complete. The man who has undergone this process carries an energy that is difficult to describe but impossible to ignore. He doesn't chase, yet he is never alone. He doesn't seduce, yet people fall into him. And he doesn't need love, yet love finds him. Now let's return to something that is often misunderstood. Sex. When men place sex at the center of their interactions with women, they make a fatal mistake. Because whoever is more desperate to gain becomes the one with less power. This isn't about withholding affection or playing mind games. It's about emotional leverage. If your entire self-image collapses when she says no, she owns you, and she knows it. But if you are capable of desiring her without needing her, you reverse the current. You become a man with options, a man who can say no, a man who does not trade intimacy for approval. This is what makes sexual restraint so powerful. It sends a clear message. I am not starving. I am choosing. And choice, real choice, is magnetic. This is the energy that cannot be faked. You can simulate confidence, but you cannot simulate indifference to outcome, because the body will always betray you. If your heart races when she pulls away, if you flinch when she tests you, she'll know. If your mood changes based on her attention, she'll know. And when she knows, the spell is broken. But when you maintain your equilibrium, when you remain non-reactive in the face of her storm, something primal awakens. You are no longer one of the many. You are different. And women don't get addicted to similarity. They get addicted to contrast. The still man in a world of noise. The centered man in a world of chaos. The undisturbed man in a world addicted to reaction. That is the man she will think about in quiet moments. That is the man she'll wonder about long after the conversation ends. That is the man who becomes a myth in her psyche, not because he tried to be, but because he was. You see, addiction in this context is not about manipulation or emotional games. It is about polarity. It's about the magnetic pull between a man who stands in his masculine essence and a woman who longs to surrender into her feminine. When she feels that you can hold space for her, not just physically but emotionally, she lets go, and the letting go becomes obsession. But this power comes with a warning. If you use it to wound, to exploit, to conquer, it will backfire. Not because she'll find out, but because you'll fracture the very essence that made you attractive. You'll become hollow again, addicted to control, detached from truth. And truth is the only thing that sustains real attraction. So if you want to walk this path, not as a performer, but as a sovereign man, you must commit to something deeper than desire. You must commit to integrity, because integrity is the ultimate aphrodisiac. It says, "I am who I say I am. I will not bend for approval. I will not perform to be chosen. I choose myself, and in doing so, I invite others to do the same." This is the work, not the dating tips, not the lines, not the games, but the deep psychological excavation that asks, who am I without validation? What do I stand for when no one's watching? Can I love myself when no one's clapping? If the answer is yes, then you have arrived, not at perfection, but at wholeness. And from that place, women don't just desire you, they get addicted, not to the illusion of you, but to the essence, the silence, the strength, the stillness, the man who has nothing to prove and everything to offer. And in a world that is starving for authenticity, that man becomes unforgettable.